to work your way through this with the Public Service Commission. If it's only one township, but because of the proximity of Beaver and Collin and Monitor, Monitor, you gotta come all the way this way in order for them to have any, which puts all of these in that little cluster. So there'd roughly be about a $75,000 purse to go in front of the Public Service Commission, from what I understood in the meeting, to help you to stop that development.
All right, so on Friday, the state made an amendment to the actual 233, what was the number? It was 233 something around.
It's a section.
233 of 2023. But anyhow, they made it a 160-page change.
And that's why you need a law firm to help you decipher it, that understands it.
So let me tell you that this is a summary of the 162 pages that we got this afternoon that I have not read yet. But what I did speak again to the attorney, Mr. Hummy, I think it is, Homie, and so he's working on putting something together for basically all 50 townships that's working with him at this particular moment to possibly go together and fight whatever the hell's in this 168 pages. He says, in a nutshell, if they pass this, there's a possibility that they would control a lot of our ordinances, not just air and solar.
And it's approximately, he said, $11,000 to $15,000, and the meeting is what our share would be to buy into having them be putting together.
Representing us, yeah.
But it's not an inexpensive law firm. I mean, their prices are pretty,
Yeah, he gets
$50 an hour.
Up to.
That's what the normal rate is, between $245 to $550. But because of it being townships and because of the number of townships, the fee will be capped at $295 an hour, regardless of the attorney working on the matter, and the township will not be billed more than $295 per hour. I would think that, I'd make a motion that we hire Foster Sweat law firm to help us navigate. I see, you were in the meeting with them. Tell me what you're gonna
incorporate them. So,
Mark Wall.
this is one area that I think everybody comes together. So
You
there's a
should
lot
be
of,
by the microphone, only because,
well, I'm not an attorney,
no, but you
I'm just a
were,
resident. Got incredibly active on this in 2017, I think it was. The beautiful thing this time is I think we all come together. There's a lot of distension clearly on the board, but everybody wants the same thing. And I think at its root, the most disruptive thing to me personally was, if those of us remember that were involved back then, our townships overwhelmingly, 600 people came out at Monder Township when we were first told by the Planning Commission they wanted them. And they really didn't understand. It was amazing how the board saw a change of light. I remember moving meetings here into the other building, and it got too contentious. I think today we're all aligned, and this summer, when this PE 233 was passed, there was independent third-party polling done of over 1,000 people in Michigan. And again, 93% or 92 of Democrats and 82 or 3 or 4 of Democrats and Republicans. Blended of both parties is 87% of all residents polled in Michigan prefer local control of their ordinances. So I'm a big believer, if the majority of my residents want a very liberal wind ordinance, that's my problem. But I have the ability to come here and say something. So this is about local control more than wind and solar. we were told at the MTA dinner that there's like, it's printed, there's like 15 more items they're trying to take away from our local control. And as much as this has been somewhat contentious tonight, we've all had the ability to hear and be seen and understand how we vote. With a few people at the state, we're going to have people in Detroit and Grand Rapids and elected officials decide in our communities. I empathize with when Sam said they're coming either way. I just don't want to believe it and I don't accept it. I think sometimes you can win and lose legally and morally and still win. And it appears to me that the Great Lakes Bay region wants to stand up and fight. And maybe even if we lose this battle, we still fought, but I'm not sure they would come. If the residents of Midland, check 150, whatever it was, Dow raised $1,500 to get Herbert Dow to stay there when Mount Pleasant was wooing him. If Dow said, we don't want a chemical plant in our town, even if you legally could, I'm not sure it would have stayed. I don't believe that we want to roll over is what we're saying, but we also don't want to kill the messengers that are trying to help us in the meantime this time. So we want to support their battle. But what they're suggesting is an overlay district.
Right.
There's, I think Rick was involved at some. There's pretty good thought that they could delay it 2 or 3 years. We could tie this up, change the political climate. But I don't claim to be that much of an expert. Just been in it for 5 years. Thought we put it to bed. I think it's so wrong that the residents of this area overwhelmingly got heard. And then they didn't like what we said in Lansing. A few people, not the majority. And they decided that our voices shouldn't have a say. And that's what this boils down to. It doesn't boil down to what attorney's right or what political party, or it boils down to if we want to have you guys decide what goes in our backyard or we want to have them decide Lansing.
That's right. Thank you.
I have a question. So this would mean, let's say this guy in the gray sweatshirt owns property up here, correct? The state can just take that away from him and build solar panels or windmills on it. Is that what's being said here?
Not exactly. They're basically just saying that we, as the local legislators, would have absolutely no way to prevent wind turbines and solar farms from being developed wherever they decide to put them.
So if nobody in this township wants to give them land, they can't take that land, correct?
There's already a
People have
bunch.
signed, they've
They want to
signed
give
leases,
land.
because they can make a lot of money on their
It's all about the
land
money.
by
And I've
putting-
also understand that this is a DTE company.
It is.
Yeah.
We don't have DTE up here, they shouldn't have their crap in our backyard.
Yeah, now, there's a lot of other issues with them being in your backyard, and it can be your backyard even though you had no say in it, and that's why the
And
ordinance
that's what
was
I'm
put
asking.
in. Yes.
So our state government's doing it.
We have,
Yes.
we have an ordinance.
I think we need a new state government.
Yes.
We have an ordinance that gives
November
setbacks
next.
and everything else, but it's not the same setbacks in that as the state does. So if he's leased his land to DTE, and DTE comes to put solar in his property, and at this particular moment, if they don't like our ordinance, all they gotta do is go to the state,
Public Service Commission.
and the state will say, okay, he leased his land, yes, you can put your solar there, and here's the guidelines. But it's totally different on our setbacks and our.
Much more laid back. Yeah. So here's my thought on retaining Foster Swift. Obviously, there is still a changing landscape when it comes to this. The state obviously has caught wind of the fact that the townships are getting together and saying, whatever we're saying. And they're now trying to put more stipulations on to make it even more difficult for us to push back on them when it comes to local control. That said, according to this letter, there is a capped hourly rate. It's not like retaining them means that we just say, run with it and spend as much money as you want. Okay, we're still going to have input in that relationship as this landscape changes. However, according to their recommendations here, they're saying that we need to make the change to the ordinance prior to November 29th. If we choose to table this for more information, we are not going to have enough time to
Change it.
take that action prior to November 29th.
Correct.
So saying yes to Foster Swift doesn't mean that we're just opening up the purse. It means we're opening the relationship so that they can assist us in making a change that may give us better standing in pushing back against the state.
That's what we're buying into.
So I don't think that we could in good conscience table this for more information. I think we need to make that initial step. So
I made the motion.
I'm backing that up.
So you have the motion?
To hire Foster Swift to help direct us.
They're gonna have to direct the planning commission, so we know exactly what we have to accomplish in an expeditious manner.
So the other thing that happens, even though we're talking about this $250 an hour, let's say all 50 townships that they have right now, because what this attorney was telling me is that we're all in the same boat.
Correct.
So the other 50 townships, it's not like Coquitlam Township's gonna go to court to fight this 168 pages. All 50 townships, if they jump on board, will go fight this
Together.
together.
Yeah.
And so
Like the
whatever the
Lego
bill is, will be divided by 50
Correct.
to help pay for what happens.
Correct.
So
50 and growing.
50 and growing.
50 and growing. But at this particular moment, he has, as of this afternoon, when I talked to him, 6 of those 50 townships are willing to go fight this. So he hasn't got all 50, but I'm not sure, since last Friday, all 50 even know all of it. We didn't even get it, even though I talked to him on Thursday, and he was supposed to mail me this on Friday. We didn't get this till this afternoon, about 2 o'clock. So, so just so you understand that part of it. But we have a motion, I'll second the motion. I don't know if anybody seconded it.
Yeah.
You said you supported it.
Yeah.
Davison,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
DeShano,
Yes.
Class,
Yes.
and Cruz.
Yes. All right. So ARPA funds. Yes, we do have around $160,000 or $70,000 in the ARPA funds.
Actually, we have $479,480.43, which would be forfeited at the end of this year if it's not earmarked. Therefore, in light of the information that we received at the last special meeting we had regarding the hall, I am making a motion to
Isn't
Accept
that
the
amazing? Well, didn't I start to
resolution.
talk first?
Yeah, I'm making a motion for a resolution to declare the remaining funds of ARPA as lost revenue. Please hand those down. So that they can be added to the general fund so that we are no longer at risk of losing those funds based on an earmarking process that we really don't have enough time to engage in. This is recommended by MTA, by the attorneys at MTA, to ensure that this money is reported properly. So that we can keep it in our general fund and not have the deadline looming of December 31st.
Makes sense.
Because right now, we did have bids,
Could have been spent.
but the
there
problem
was
with the
never
bids
needed
is they're not sealed.
They're not.
And I talked to a guy in the heating and cooling business today, and he said he would like to be able to bid it, but he says there were no specs available on just what was gonna happen. And he said, you have to think further on your building. What do you need a 13-foot 4-inch ceiling for when you could easily have a 9-foot ceiling? And then they could put all the ductwork above and not have units hanging on the wall. And I said, good thought. And he said, you know, you gotta come up with some specs so that people can then intelligently bid this, and the sealed bids can actually be sealed bids, and not just a piece of paper turned in that says, you know, your heating and cooling system's $125,000, because he said, you know, depending on what exactly is there, it would be $100,000. So let's protect this money. And in protecting that money, if you made the motion, I would second it, so that we do
Can
not.
this money be saved this way?
According to the attorney of MTA and the webinar that we participated in, it
Yeah.
absolutely can. This is the exact resolution that they suggested.
2 weeks ago, there was a webinar on how to keep your ARPA money. And I sat in on it,
As did I.
and that's why I requested the information as to what we paid our fire department and what we paid our police department. And that's why these numbers are what they are. And that way, we don't frivolously spend $480,000 that can be more wisely used.
Wasn't there some money put away for the cemetery?
That was.
We have 60,000
Okay,
on
so
the
it's
CD.
not on this.
I'm not-
Okay, I just wanted to make
Got it.
sure.
What happened to having everything in the packet so
Do
we
it.
could review it before we get to the meeting?
Well, we weren't given our packet.
Our packet wasn't getting to us until
We didn't get our
Saturday
packets until
night,
Saturday.
8 o'clock.
You asked for this information, what, a week ago or so?
I asked for these numbers. I didn't have this information all in stale, because I sat down and I watched the webinar,
Okay.
okay? And everybody in this office, every one of
So
us,
when was this ready?
this wasn't printed till today. But you know what? We all knew. Everybody in this office knew that this money is in jeopardy.
Yep.
And to frivolously spend it on anything, no, that's,
Yeah, rather than just nickel and diming and just throwing money at things willy-nilly without a plan. Even when we had that town hall at the hall with many residents that had input on this, we talked about a lot of different ideas, but it came down to the exact same thing. You have to have a vision on how you're going to realize the goal and build toward that. In order to spend this money before the end of the year, all of a sudden, we're just doing this and that and this. We're not talking about having, first off, sealed bids, valid point, that is our
Sealed bid.
policy. But we're not talking about how to improve on our very high utility costs for that building, very high utility costs. We are not making money when we rent that building because the utility costs are so high. So we need to actually have a very good plan for how we're going to better insulate the building, what we're going to do as far as the windows to make them more efficient, and then bring in HVAC. We have several different things we need to look at, and doing it in the space we have between now and December 31st,
can't be appropriately
it's
done.
not going to be done in a wise fashion. So this allows us to put the money legally into the general fund so that it can then be spent with more forethought into the best way to invest this money into our community in a way that's going to benefit our community. And that, again, was recommended by MTA, and once the figures were available, this was created.
So an hour ago, we were gonna put $150,000 of this money for 10 houses on Guy Street.
What are you
10
talking
houses
about?
on
There's
Guy
more than
Road.
10 houses in the
It's
village.
first,
On Guy
second,
Street?
first, second, third,
Fourth,
fourth, fifth, Guy Street, and Maple
Maple
Street. There's a
Street.
whole bunch in there.
So, and then, when we had the meeting with all these people, which was 17 people and 5 of them was us, they wanted a patio on the back.
Yeah.
They're $140 or $70,000 isn't gonna get you anything else but to repair that building.
We, again,
We actually have builders that are interested in bidding on it, but they want to know what they're supposed to bid on. And if we don't know what they're going to bid on, we don't have any specifications. There's a bidding here for all this kitchen stuff. You know what? Number one thing the kitchen needs is makeup air. It don't have it legally. You have to have makeup air. You can't just spend, what, I saw the price here, $66,000. You're not dealing with Havoc. You don't have an Ansel system. You're not dealing with the ceiling. You're not dealing with the walls. And you're gonna spend $66,000 on a room, you know, a piece of equipment for $3,500, and we just had several restaurants go out of business in the area. I think I would try to pay attention to what the area is happening. This price, when it comes to windows, at $17,700, we can have a local builder buy windows, and we can put them in at a much more economical price. And it's local people.
And you got those bids and
I
they weren't
did.
sealed.
I did,
and they weren't sealed.
because you know when I first got it, wasn't on 9/11, somebody requested this to be reset. I got this more than 6 months ago. Ponder Doors sent one, and I don't see the Ponder one,
Oh, I couldn't find it.
you know?
Oh.
So, the moral of the story
For
is,
the blown-in insulation or the HVAC system, those sealed bids, were there any other bids that were turned in by contractors?
so,
There's a
motion on the floor.
for the ARPA funds. For resolution 2024-11 for lost revenue for the CLFRF remaining funds. You ready for roll call?
Yep.
Campbell,
Yes.
DeShano,
Yes.
Class,
Yeah.
Cruz,
Yes.
Davidson.
Sure, why not? And funds weren't gonna be lost. The fire department owes $310,000 on the fire truck yet, and these funds could have been used for that, but that's all right.
They still could be, but we have the choice.
Exactly.
We're not going to be held hostage by the federal government.
Right. Now it's safe.
Right here. Fire department can use a new building.
But at least we have time to actually compile those ideas instead of being under the gun. That was the whole idea.
Any other new business? All right, let's move on.
FOIA appeal.
FOIA appeal.
I thought we already talked about
Yeah,
that.
we
She got her
done with the
FOIA,
FOIA
she
part?
said what she needed.
Well, again, I didn't get for September 2nd and September 3rd, and September 3rd was a work day. September 2nd, even though it was a holiday, there still should have been footage, because there was footage on a Saturday and Sunday when the office wasn't open. And what about the footage between 8 p.m. at night and 6 o'clock in the morning? Was there like no...
Is there never anything between those hours, or?
There was one day, and it was very sporadic.
So, the next question is, if somebody goes to drop an absentee ballot in, and the camera's not working between those hours, we have a serious problem. Because the state says it's required. So if that box is emptied at night and in the morning, there's something in it, and it's not recorded on there, somebody's in trouble.
No, it's,
No,
well then,
that was a problem, there was nothing recorded. in
no,
that.
I didn't get any footage from that time.
Right, go watch the movie.
There was no footage.
Hang on, Mr. Wannabe Supervisor. We're still in the meeting here.
You're still in the room.
So, well, the only thing we can do is get them back in here to answer those questions.
So,
And we've already approved.
Solution to
Yeah,
come.
so that's a
Get the
moot point.
I
camera.
mean, I'd call Solution tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock and say, hey, get that camera installed immediately.
so just as a follow-up question though, because this was new business, so we didn't go as far into it with that paper that I'd seen before it was given to Ms. Urich. The second part of the FOIA, which was also appealed, was about knowing who all had access. Now, I think it was initially, there's been different information, I guess, about this based on the email that I read. But what was provided tonight listed people. So,
And receptionist computer, zoning computer, and veterans alarm tech support.
okay, so if I as a board member went up to the receptionist computer, would I be able to just click in there and see the footage, or would I need to have a specified password?
You have to have a password to get on the computer.
So that would mean that because it's on the receptionist's computer, so Shirley has a password. Shirley can see the cameras. Who would need a password to get in on the zoning computer to see the cameras, or would it just come up?
No, you have to have a password to get on every computer.
Okay.
That's security.
So if I wanted to come in and take a look on the zoning computer and see all this footage, then I would have to get a password. How?
Dr. Bill.
I would say somebody logs in for you and then you can do it. I wouldn't just be giving everybody a password.
Well, I'm a board member that's
Okay.
elected,
Okay.
not somebody that's an employee. It's different.
On a computer.
So, I'm just saying, that was the idea, that there are certain numbers of passwords, there are certain numbers of logins, that if you're just saying the zoning computer, who's the login for that? Could anybody log in? I mean, are you able to log in on your computer at home when you have that username and
Special software
password?
required.
That's what I'm asking, and I think that that's what the question was in the FOIA that was never really fully answered, of who has access, where can you access it, and, you know, can just anybody do it? That is important to note as well. I mean,
You have to have the password for the computer you're sitting at.
okay, so every person that has a login and a password for these cameras, do they have the ability to go in and delete files?
No.
No, there would have to be parameters established, I would think. Administrator would, whoever you assign to be an
So who's the
administrator.
Well, we had to have, them come out and get into the main box.
Because that's why
The computers are only to look at.
Okay.
The footage.
So the only people that have the ability to remove any footage would be the alarm company when you call them in. Nobody else could do any kind of a removal. Nobody has access.
It can't be tampered, no.
Well, that's
For
good.
God's sakes, can anybody be like,
No, I'm just, she's just asking a question, and I'm,
I think that there needs to be some clarity because we didn't realize that it was malfunctioning to the extent that it was.
So do you trustees have the password?
I don't have my password.
But the other three, you guys have passwords?
to our own computers?
And they have access, and so does Shirley's secretary
But
and
two
Bill. the-
elected board members.
I didn't even know it was on there.
To view.
To view,
only.
the only thing we can do is view it on our computers.
And of
They
course,
can do the same thing that I did when I went to the cemetery. Let's use another example. I went to the cemetery, I called Solution, Solution came out. I was going through everything, we spent 4.5, 5 hours, found where the person had come on the property and did what they did. But I can't delete that.
and you shouldn't.
Correct.
Exactly.
But the question is, if someone has the necessary password, they could.
But
then
they
what?
just told you that Solution is the only one that can do that.
No,
No, it's not Solution, it's
Oh,
actually
it's not.
It's gonna be
Veterans.
Veterans.
And that was the whole point of the
Yeah.
FOIA, that this information should have been provided.
And
She's
and
just
of
asking a
and of
question.
course, if you or Lori ever ask you for the password, I would never deny you the password. Not a board member, I wouldn't. I might other people, but I would definitely not deny you a password, but.
Just need
I never
to-
asked.
Zoning computer too.
Whoever, whatever she asks, it's just a simple yes or no to whatever she asks, that's all I'm asking.
You have the password to get on.
Mention the main thing, do I? People want to get in, whatever, I don't know. I've never-
You have your
I tell you where to find this stuff.
icon is in the upper right hand corner.
That's okay, Charlie, I didn't know I had it either.
Well, I had no idea. And-
I didn't
and
either, but I
The less
didn't
you
either.
know, the better off you are.
That's what I'm
Ask our
saying.
lawyer.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though.
The less I know, the better off I am.
Reason to need it.
What?
I had no idea.
Don't tell me what no icon means. Okay, so,
So we'll have to get you
Keep
the
it going.
information. We're gonna change the system, so we'll have it they can fix it.
and get it fixed.
All right, the last thing is the sheriff's report. We got one for September.
Looks like a light month.
33 traffic stops, 16 reckless drivings.
11 well checked. Yeah.
Anything else?
All right, make a motion for us to adjourn.
Seconded. All those in favor
Hallelujah.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Yeah. Pick up your little.